today, people are worried about this case now, and we can come back to that later in the discussion, and try and see how the modern world looks. But the greatest argument against it today is that there are two sets of arguments, and let me just say, one is the social criticisms. The many young people are altruistic, empathetic, and they worry about the effects of globalization on women's rights, on democracy, on poverty in the poor countries, on indigenous culture, like Evo Morales, that globalization is going to wipe it out. Then Monsieur Beauvais in France worries about mainstream culture, that the French culture will be wiped out, and also French agriculture for that matter. So there's a double jeopardy for the French. And so there are a variety of such things. And those I would say are mainly the concerns of the young and idealistic people. And they really form the most important part of the world in my view. Then there are the fears and self-interest driven critics of globalization. Those are the AFL-CIO, all the presidential candidates today in the United States, who of course reflect the AFL-CIO fears and so on. They are worried about how trading with the outside world, having multinational corporations, investing abroad and so on, how all of that is going to really undermine our wages of us unskilled workers, maybe even of the middle class in some cases. There are some people who worry about that. But I would say that ties up with my original worry of what's going to happen to the bottom 30%. I'm a Democrat in the U.S. political configuration. I have always worried about the bottom 30%. If this is true, it's a serious downside. But I don't believe it is true. But this is something which a lot of people fear, and that's the biggest challenge to globalization today in the rich countries. No, it can never be flat. And it's as wrong to, today in Tom Friedman's book as it was in the time of Copernicus. I mean, it's just ironic that he's using a phrase which is actually cockeyed. That's no barrier to its being taken on. I'll tell you why it is, because what he's suggesting, this is Friedman's phrase, he's suggesting basically that that all countries can more or less produce the same things. To put it in terms of analogy, that somehow India and China, which can now do almost anything we do, that they're going to come down like, Russell Crowe with Roman legions and trample over all of us and take all our jobs away. So he quotes people from Bangalore, which is where this great IT sector, has materialized. And he quotes a friend of mine called Nilakani, who runs a major firm called Infosys, which is one of the two very major firms. And that guy is utterly brilliant. And he says things like, which Tom Friedman quotes, which is that we can do anything that the Americans can do. So he's sort of, he's flexing his muscles like Popeye, but Popeye does it on spinach and Nilakani's doing it on IT. And so, Tom, of course, is dramatic and he takes it all down. But it's translated by Tom's readers and to some extent even by Tom Friedman into the completely different proposition, which is that therefore Indians will wind up doing everything that the Americans are doing. But that's simply impossible because the road has many hills and many potholes. So let me give you two examples because it's important for people to understand this. And I'll give you one cultural one and one political one.